Welcome back to the Tiberium Hangar. This is Mike, and today I want to talk to you about the G.I. Joe Classified versus the Super 7, and we're going to talk about all of that. But with G.I. Joe being, if not the most popular toy line ever, one of the most popular toy lines ever, there's competition. Competition for the 1/12 scale. You might even argue that Super 7 is 1/10 scale. But with all of this, we are going to compare and contrast every one of the releases of Super 7 with the already existing or sort of already existing versions for G.I. Joe Classified. We're going to talk about things such as price, scale, aesthetic, and kind of where it all works out. Got a few more things to talk about, a couple more topics and discussions along the way coming up. Okay, so before we get into comparing each figure, I do want to do an overall comparison of the toy line. So G.I. Joe Classified on the left is a $23 figure. On the right is Super 7. Now that is a $55 figure. Now a couple of things are going to have some variables to them, and as we go to figure to figure to figure, there are a few pricing and accessory variables such as animals, and we're going to talk about that. But getting into this, you see that for about 2.5 times more, or $32 more, for what you get on the right side, you get a lot more accessories, more of a cartoon aesthetic, and a lot of people are in for that. But it looks like a little bit less articulation than we get with the Classified. Now, looking at the Classified, the weapons in the early days did not look like true weapons. We're getting that with Super 7, but I think going forward, we're going to get more classic style weapons. So I don't think that's even an issue or a topic for discussion going forward. Just with the old figures, it's a deal. Now, looking at this also, you do have more articulation, and there are a real world look to G.I. Joe Classified. So that out of the way, that's pretty much the same across the board, and you get an extra inch taller for the Super 7 on the right, and on the left, the G.I. Joe Classified is 6 inches versus 7 inches. And, you know, the jury's still out. Does an inch really make that much of a difference? She hasn't answered yet. Okay, so I'm going to start out with Cobra Commander versus Cobra Commander. And looking at this, Cobra Commander on the left, the G.I. Joe Classified, is a more real-world look. And in the beginning, they were trying to go for a lot of detail and a lot of stuff going on. And on the right, you have a super simple design, more of a tune-accurate, almost tune-perfect design that's going on right there. Now, I did kind of include a thumbnail here, so I'm going to try to have some sort of a cartoon picture in there, but we know Classified's not going for direct cartoons so much. That's not exactly what they're going for. But I'm putting that in anyway, just to kind of get an idea of what's going on here. So, I kind of think that the one on the left, the Classified version, is more towards the Hooded Cobra Commander. It would have been a great Hooded Cobra Commander. But we're not going to get into that topic either. We're not allowed to make Hooded Cobra Commanders in this day and age. So, with that out of the way, looking at them, which one do you like better? Which one do you think fits your collection more? Here's all of the accessories, so the comparisons. Now, the G.I. Joe Classified one, again, was in the older design. I think that going forward, we will definitely get a classic Cobra Commander going forward eventually. I don't really want that so much. Like, I don't want them to make the same characters over and over and over. I want new characters. But in this case, yeah, we probably do need a more classic design. But looking at it, the weapons themselves aren't really very classic either. Now, there's a whole group of people, or a subgroup of people that are collecting G.I. Joe Classified that like the designs and like that they're different. So I want to throw that out there too. Now, if you're in the pocket that you want the tune accurate, well, looking at the tune accurate, that's $31 more gets you $32 more gets you a cape. It gets you a bunch of stuff. You get a staff, real looking guns that you actually saw in the cartoon, multiple different hands, a snake, and just all these little things. Now, I personally will not use the majority of these accessories on my shelf, so for me, it's a little bit of a waste. It's nice that they included it, but I think it's a little bit of a waste. We also have 2 different types of swappable heads and stuff like that with Super 7, so I would have actually liked it to be more scaled down and closer to a $30, $35 price point, not the $55 price point, but that's not what's really going on. Okay, so next up we have the G.I. Joe Classified Bat. So on the left is the Classified, on the right is the Super 7, and with the Classified, now I guess I should have gotten a boxed shot of this guy, but you do get quite a bit of accessories with the Classified. You do get all of the attachments, and you get a gun and some stuff like that with him. So he does look pretty good. I think this is one of the better G.I. Joe classified releases for the Bat, and you get a removable chest piece and swappable stuff. Now on the right here, you get an extra arm that's like a broken arm, but multiple different hand attachments, multiple different backpack attachments, and the backpack is more classic. Now there's a lot of different stuff going on with the backpack on the Bat for the classified. So between these, there's a lot of effects, a lot more stuff, a lot of accessories. Again, more accessories, but if you want to stick with maybe a classic amount of accessories, G.I. Joe Classified for $23. So back and forth, side to side, which one do you like the best? I think they look great. Both of them look great. I just think the 1-inch difference, integrating these two together, might be a challenge if you want an army and you maybe have one of the Super 7s and a bunch of the G.I. Joe Classifieds. So this kind of gets into another discussion, a topic of troop builders. Maybe you troop build with your Classifieds and you have the main characters with your Super 7. Who knows? But we'll talk more about that here up in a few. So yeah, I think the Bats are a pretty close tie. They each do different things. One's more real world, one's more toon, and one's way more expensive. But getting into Duke, now this is another one that's in a way a tie. Now I think that G.I. Joe Classified on the left, I think they did a really good job out the gate making him feel like Duke. And this is the recolored version, which actually is harder to get, which is odd because the other recolors are easy to find in droves, except this guy. Now, looking at them, I felt like it was pretty decent and classic, but I felt the head sculpt was a bit off on Duke. I thought it was a nice looking head sculpt, but I didn't feel like it was Duke. Now, looking over at Super 7, I think Super 7 is closer on the head sculpt, and of course, almost spot on with the toon accuracy, but still not perfect on the head sculpt. And again, it's going to be hard because animation changes so much. There's so many different from frame to frame to frame. We're trying to capture exactly the way you want it to look. Well, maybe you will never get perfect for some of these characters, but I don't think either one of these nail the head sculpt. Now, getting into accessories, you have real world guns and stuff, and I'm not going to punish Classified because going forward, they are going to give us real world style guns. So I don't know if they're going to reissue Duke with a different setup or anything like that. But if they do, I guarantee you we won't get the same old Nerf guns like we did before. Now, we do get a separate helmet, which I like, because that is kind of how we had it back in the original days. And you got a couple of different headgear swaps. You've got all of the accessories the original vintage figure had, and that is really cool, plus some, plus a bunch. And then like, you got a watch, you got a lot of accessories. But is it worth $55 if the Duke on the shelf's already pretty decent? That's a tough one, because I think Classified's already pretty decent. So next up, we're getting into Snake Eyes. Now, this is Snake Eyes going for two different things, and I'm really comparing the Classified with Timber Deluxe Pack to Super 7s because they both have Timber and closer to the price point. Closer to the similar price point, but still, Super 7 is $55. Now, I want to point out Super 7 is the same price as the other figures, but they include an animal. So, pretty interesting. Now, less accessories, though, but still some pretty cool, well thought out accessories that maybe I won't ever use. But I do like that the Classified one, they have the similar head, like the similar head and the goggles and all that kind of stuff to this one. And the reason that it's blue is because in the earlier episodes, that's kind of the way it was. So I did get this screen capture to show you that Super 7 is closer to those episodes. But I don't think so many people remember that version of Snake Eyes. So getting into it, looking at these side by side, which one would you like to have the most? Now, I kind of like Snake Eyes more in the black than the blue. That's me personally, so that's where that is. Anyway, looking at the animals, it'll be interesting to see comparing the articulation and all that kind of stuff when they come in, but I don't think Super 7 is going for highly articulated with the timber, more of the aesthetic look. So if you like the really nice looking aesthetic, like a clean aesthetic, less articulation, then Super 7 is there for you. So looking at the left, that is $42. BBTS has it for $45, which is the same place that I'm getting most of these Super 7s at $55. So about a $10 difference there. And you see what you get for $10 difference. It's kind of up to you, your preference, and your expectations. So getting into the G.I. Joe Classified Destro versus the Super 7 Destro, I think that the original Destro was one of the better early designs of G.I. Joe Classified that I kind of liked more. But now that I see what Super 7's doing with it, I absolutely love it. It's just so close to the tune accuracy, and it's so much of what I remember from Destro. In fact, it takes where I feel like the vintage toy failed, because the vintage toy was good, but it failed a bit compared to the cartoon, and gives us that cartoon. So I'm kind of living in Super 7 pocket for the majority of these because they look so good. Now, less articulation, less real world, and a ton more accessories. Just so much in there. Like, I remember a handful of these, like little joystick from one of the episodes there and all that kind of stuff. So many cool things that they're including in this that I probably won't really use, but it's cool that they included it. And the different faces, the different heads, that's cool too. So I think it's going to be a shinier head than what Hasbro did, but none of this is vac metallized, which would have been nice. It would have been really nice to have it vac metallized, but it is a super shiny looking paint. So again, when we get it in hand, we'll really know. Now, the Classified itself, though, there's a briefcase and a couple of different guns, and one of the guns looks similar to one of his vintage guns, but still pretty cool. It's an interesting looking. Both of them, I think, look good. Both are good on a shelf, so it's kind of tough for 2.5 times more. Is Super 7 worth it? So next up in Wave 2, they're calling this the Power Couple Wave. So many people are calling this Power Couple Wave. So Wave 2, Baroness, and she's in the blue, which is, you know, an early design color. And I think they're trying to go from earliest showing to latest showing, but they are kind of skipping around a little bit. So with all of that, side by side, for $41.99 or whatever, so basically $40 on the left, you got a motorcycle, you got the first classified vehicle, and a bunch of accessories. And some of the accessories are for the vehicle, and some of the accessories are for Baroness riding the vehicle, like the helmet. But on the right, it's all Baroness and all Baroness accessories and all kind of stuff from those episodes that you'd want to use and utilize. So for that, it's, if you don't like the bike, since it's some made-up thing they just threw in, then this is kind of $40 just for Baroness, because they're not offering her by herself yet. Who knows if they will in the future, but just for Baroness, and it was an exclusive, hard to get. So it's kind of one of those, it's hard to compare, but with Super 7, you have availability all the time. Taking a closer look at the figures, side by side with kind of some animation in there. Now, I do want to point out that I think the G.I. Joe Classified matches the aesthetic of the original that we remember from Baroness from majority of the episodes better than this one. Now, a couple things I want to say, I want to point out. First off, the hourglass design on Classified is more of what we think of when we see Baroness, and this almost looks like kind of like a 12-year-old boy shape going on with the Super 7 Baroness. Now, people have said, well, it's the same buck that they used for Lady J, but I really think Lady J wears slightly baggier military-type clothing versus skin-tight leather. So there's a difference there. But anyway, all that aside, it's still your preferred aesthetic. What do you like the most? I still think Classified wins on this one. Classified doesn't win on everything. And the thing that is, she's a female character. She can be shorter than your Super 7 other characters. So that's another thing to look at. So all of this in there, which one do you like the most? So next up, Lady J. And since we have Lady J without a hat on Super 7, then the Lady J with a hat is not going to work on this one for a comparison side by side. So we have to compare the really weird looking hair toupee thing going on with the Classified Lady J. So get it out of the way real quick. Obviously, Super 7 for $32 more is giving you a ton of accessories, a slew of accessories, and they look the accessories themselves look very tune accurate. And so does the figure and all of that. But one of the biggest problems I have with both of these is the head sculpt. Neither one of them nailed the head sculpt. And I think looking at Super 7, it's just the face isn't long enough. The face is way too short. Like, it should have been 30% longer. I think that's where the problem is on Super 7's face. And the face on Hasbro is, I don't even know who that is. Like, seriously, I have no idea who they sculpted that head. It's crazy. But looking at them side by side, I do feel like Super 7 is the win, but I don't feel like Super 7 truly is like $32 more. I think it's maybe $10 more. It's a tough one on that, but I do think that aside from the weird head sculpt, if you put the hat on the classified Lady J, she does look a little bit better. So for that, in my opinion, I think they did a pretty good job with the Lady J aside from that weird toupee thing. Last one we're going to look at is classified Flint. Now I got to say that the classified Flint does look, both of them look pretty good, but I think Super 7 really does nail the aesthetic better. When you look at the picture of the cartoon, you definitely see Super 7. Like Super 7 is like almost spot on. Like that head sculpt is almost perfect. The accessories look good. Everything about this Super 7 is Flint. But I don't think the classified one is bad. I do think it's another case of Duke, which is a nice head sculpt, but it's not the character head sculpt. So for this, it goes to Super 7 in my opinion. But then again, it's 2.5 times price. So all of this said, which one do you like more? You know, I'm leaning towards Flint on this one. And I can't say that Super 7 won all of them. I think the classified still wins a handful of these. So there's a lot more to consider than just aesthetic or which one do you like or price or size or scale and all that kind of stuff. There's also the availability. Super 7 makes it easy to order for not months, 6 months, even maybe a year. Who knows how long these will be easy to order. I know that they made some He-Man figures and they made Thundercats figures, and all of those are so easy to order. Yes, a higher price point, and maybe that's part of it. But a lot of the frustration with G.I. Joe Classified is not being able to get it. A lot of people think that we'll probably get the Super 7 version of the Bat before we see the Classified, even though people have Classifieds in their hands. You know, the mass public like me, the Joe Blows out there trying to get their hands on these figures. I'll probably get Super 7 first. It'll probably just be through production and show up, and my pre-orders will be filled before I can even place an order for these guys. You start looking at the animals, the pricing, it's not that big of a difference anymore. It's like $10 difference, and Super 7 aesthetic versus Hasbro aesthetic, and all of that accounted for. Well, a $10 difference doesn't sound like a big deal. A $32 difference sounds like a big deal. But with the animals, not that big of a difference. And we don't know how deep Super 7 is going to go. Super 7 says they have 36 figures planned on the dockets. They've only talked about Wave 1 and Wave 2. And so there's 8 figures, and they have a lot more waves on the way. So this is like, what, 7 more waves they have on the way that they're planning. And the other thing is that a lot of times people look at the price of this, but if they're only putting 8, maybe 12 figures out a year, that's still half of what we're going to see from Hasbro. Hasbro's probably going to put out 25 to 30 figures a year when they get it rolling. It's not rolling yet. It's in the early stages of redirection, and when Hasbro gets going, they're going to flood the market. And there's going to be wave after wave after wave in the future. We're talking late 2022 and early 2023. But Super 7 is going to just keep rolling along and plugging away with their maybe 8 to 12 figures a year. And the last thing I want to talk about is integration of Classified with Super 7. So how will they work together? I think that the main characters for Super 7 with G.I. Joe Classified troopers and army builders around them would look amazing. And I really think that it would not be cost effective to build an army of Cobra troopers or even bats with Super 7, but it would be relatively cost effective. It is right now with Hasbro. So that's something I plan to do. I plan to have a ton of the standard troopers and in the cheaper scale, and then have, for the most part, the main characters in Super 7. Of course, we haven't got a Super 7 figure yet, so we really don't even know about quality and all that kind of stuff, but we have a history with He-Man, a history with, well, we've already gotten some of their Thundercats and stuff like that. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like any of these figures from Super 7, are you in on any of them, or are you out on all of it? Like, subscribe to Deer Hanger out.